Actual Queen podcast is on a roll. Yep, we had Brian last time round. This time we have the drum department. Mr. Roger Taylor sat down with me to discuss Journey's End, his latest solo project. You may well have heard some of this interview before. What you're hearing now is the full edit of the interview that I did with Roger. This expanded version sees Roger talk about all sorts of things, including David Bowie, George Michael, working with Adam Lambert, the new Queen tour and its production, future solo endeavours that he has coming up outside of Journey's End, soundtrack work, the Queen movie, news of the world, his son Rufus and the darkness. It's all in there. Well, enough of me. Here comes Roger.
You burn all my energy. Criticize and all you see.
Okay then, right. So we're back at Taylor Towers, and it's 2017, and in a nice surprising way, we're still talking about Roger Taylor's solo career, aren't we?
I don't really think of it as a solo career. I just think of it as things I do, sort of come up with occasionally. The main thrust of what I do is it's really Queen and the mothership, and that seems to take up quite a lot of our time lately. But in the sort of times between, if I occasionally do have an idea, a little project, which is what this was really, Journey's End, then I'm free to indulge myself, and so this is just born of a sort of rather, I thought, nice chord sequence, and it has a sort of quite whimsical, rather fatalistic atmosphere. I think it's basically about thoughts of mortality, and as we're not getting any younger, and you should start thinking about the tail end or the September of one's years. But it's a journey. It is, and it's sort of coming up to the end of the journey. This has been an incredible journey. That our career, our band Queen, which we thought was over with the death of Freddie, it just seems to continue, honestly, almost with a life of its own. And as long as people want to see us, I think we'll be happy to indulge them.
Well, talking of sort of the indulgement, I think what we can say about Journey's End, the track, it's actually more of a piece than a track, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a piece, which is why, there's a long solo in it, and I've just let it sort of take its own course. And I didn't want to make it quick and edited, and I'd wanted it to be fairly contemplative, fairly dreamlike, and a sort of mood piece, really, yeah.
Like I think I said to you earlier, when I heard there was a new Roger solo track coming, I thought it was going to be of its time in the sort of a political stance, but this is actually, like you said, it's a sort of a reflective piece.
Yeah.
Somewhere where you've been before with Days of Our Lives and...
Yes. I'm a miserable sod, really, I suppose. It's not political at all in the slightest. It's very personal, actually, and there's so much going on politically. I mean, any other voices are certainly more than needed, I think. The world's gone mad and backwards, but I don't think anybody wants to hear me comment on that. The atmosphere of the piece. I was thinking of a film, Shangri-La, about Shangri-La. Thanks. Yes, the film Lost Horizon, which is a very old film from the 30s, and in which they're trekking across the Himalayas. They get lost in the Himalayas. There's a plane goes down, and they find this city of Shangri-La, and where there's this kind of utopian perfection. It's a great mood piece, and I had that sort of atmosphere in my head when I was writing the song.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is where did this actually start from? And you've answered that question. When did you write this? Because obviously the last solo material we know of was the Fun on Earth album.
Yeah.
No,
this just sort of came out of this. I thought, well, I'm going to write a decent chord sequence, and which I think it is. I think it's a nice, lovely chord sequence. Slightly in the mode of some of the turn of the century sort of composers, but that sort of dreamlike thing. Not obviously the chords you'd necessarily expect. And I just thought it was a nice template to put the sort of Shangri-La type journey onto.
So the music comes first, and then the lyrics, and then how did the concept of this? It's a film essentially, isn't it, which accompanies the track? This is what we're talking about.
Yes. Well, we made a film produced by my wife, who got it all together. We shot a lot of it in Cornwall, some of it around my house, and some of it in places that I'd known, and even using the cathedral that I was a chorister in when I was a youngster in Truro. And they very kindly lent us the cathedral for an evening. It was very freezing outside, and it was rather wonderful inside. For the dance sequence, which is a sort of dreamlike devil angel dance macabre in the middle of the piece, to the solo.
I mean, having watched it a few times, I had to watch it a few times. There's a lot to take in. And there's a quote that's sort of come around out of our team, which I'm going to read to you and see what you think of this. I think it's from Phil Simon.
Oh, yeah.
It says, accepting that eternity is not an option, Roger Taylor delivers a haunting musical and visual odyssey steeped in reflection and contemplation.
Very good. This is better than I could have done, I think. Well done, Phil. It's a very nice... yes, it is a sort of acceptance of the fact that, things will come to an end. And it is a journey, even the bass sequence, which is almost random, sort of random but not, if that makes sense, is a plodding footstep kind of thing. It's a journey and a journey towards the end of one's little turn.
Yeah, I think the lyrics...
On the coil.
Yeah, the lyrics, obviously demonstrate that. The curtain falls, but who knows when, my journey's end.
Yeah, true. When the end does come, I mean, it's quite nice if it is unexpected. It often is, I think. It's all very... I always think of Shirley Bassey singing that line for some reason.
Wow.
That curtain falls.
That's a collaboration.
Yeah.
I mean, again, first time I listened to it, the first thing that sort of came to my head was Bowie.
Oh, really?
Similar sort of the way he made his exit with the release of the Black Star record.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
That's how I was like, okay. Did those losses in 2016 affect you? I mean, there's a couple that are linked to you, Bowie in particular.
Exceedingly, especially David. I didn't believe it actually at first. I sort of couldn't quite accept the fact that he wasn't around and how bravely he did deal with it in the end. It's extraordinary, what a talent. And the fact that he sort of almost engineered his death as a spectacle in the Lazarus and the very scary videos he made for the two tracks. It was really quite something. I don't think anybody had ever been quite that graphic about their own death in advance. The scene in the bed is harrowing, I think. Anyway, it was a terrible year, wasn't it? Then there was Prince and there was George Michael. And my friend Rick Parfitt, actually, who was an old friend of mine from the 80s, actually. We were quite close in the 80s, actually, when he was my neighbour. So it was, all in all, it was a dreadful year, and many others, of course.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to Bowie, your quote sort of sums up what you just said. He said, "The cleverest and most interestingly brilliant man of our time. What a vacuum he leaves.
Yeah.
How he'll be missed." It kind of sums up the way he made his exit, really.
True, actually. I find it odd. I do find that the kind of troughs and crests of public acceptance are a fascinating thing. In the 90s, in the 70s, David was the king, and then in the 80s, he was the emperor, and then in the 90s, he was almost reviled, and very much sort of last year's thing, and now again he's a godlike hero. Well, I think he was always a godlike hero, and he was a sort of a one-star genius, I think, to rank with anybody.
I mean, like I said, there's several things that are linked to the band. Obviously, Bowie and Under Pressure, a song I know you love, and you said you'd love to have continued doing something.
Yeah, I would actually. I would have been great. But we were sort of living in slightly different geographical things. Not everybody always got on. I always got on with him. It would have been great, I think, had we done an album. Would have been fantastic. But there we are. Wasn't to be.
I mean, you touched on Rick Parfitt as well. Obviously, a friend of yours. They supported Queen, on several shows.
Mm-hmm.
And George Michael was a big shock for a lot of people. It was his age again, wasn't it?
Yeah, terrific shock. Yeah. And who knows? I don't quite know what happened, but it was just so sad. And he was a very talented, I think, troubled guy.
I mean, he was the one who shone on the tribute concert, wasn't he?
He did, actually. It was just the sheer quality of his voice and his perfectionism, and the song just suited him. And the uncanny resemblance to Freddie's vocal on "Somebody to Love," it was fabulous. Yeah.
I mean,
he did it, actually. I remember Lisa Stansfield, and he did. I think they did.
Days of Our Lives.
No, Break Free.
Oh, she did Break Free, and I think they did.
Oh, she did Break Free, and and it was great. They did a great job together. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, he was one that obviously you have Adam now. He was one that a lot of people were saying, well, after that performance, surely they found someone they could collaborate with.
Well, I think.
Did they ever get any closer to that?
Not really. I think he was following a very different path. His stuff went more sort of dance and very sort of smooth. It really wasn't our kind of thing. He was very shocked when we were doing the rehearsals for that concert at the power of the band, and he's used to working with a kind of quieter instrumentation, I think, and not this massive great wall of sound that we have. So I don't think it would have worked really as an ongoing thing, but he was just fabulous to work with at that point,
It's funny, you mentioned the rehearsals. One of the clips that started shooting around, obviously following the news of his death, was the rehearsal footage of.
Yes,
of you guys with
I'd never
George.
seen that actually, and I certainly hadn't seen it in years. If I'd forgotten it, if I had. Interesting, wasn't it?
And you saw Bowie and Seal in the background watching, going, "Oh, we're up next." That kind of.
There was a nice atmosphere there, actually. Yeah.
I mean, going back to Journey's End, obviously, mortality and all this sort of thing. Is this something that you think about more, or is it something you think you found a nice subject matter for this track?
Not really. I mean, I think it is something that everybody, everybody's leaving at some point, and as you get older, you think about it more. Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody in their 20s thinks about that kind of thing. But of course, inevitably, one is forced to confront the fact. And as I think David Bowie said, I embrace age. I'm not sure he meant it. But he said that the the only drawback is there's the dying bit that's so shit. I think you should just accept the whole thing, you know.
I mean, when you get to this point, do you just do what you want to do? You know, and
I think it's very important that you live it out each day, not to the, not sort of 24 hours, but you should really optimise each day and make sure you have a good time, make sure you enjoy it, because every time you don't have a good time, you're kind of missing. You're missing out.
I mean, obviously, again, going back to some of these, let's just say, sort of rock star deaths, did that sort of get to you slightly and just go, okay, we are this golden generation of which is,
well, you do think, oh dear, they're all dropping like flies, you know. And Keith Richards was quite funny. He said that thing. He said, "I bet you thought I was next."
There's always bets on him every year, isn't there?
But it wasn't just musicians. I think there were so many other people. There were entertainment business, particularly. Alan Rickman and John Hurt recently. And it's just we're all getting older, and we're going to drop off the perch.
I mean, with Journey's End, you're talking about this issue or this aspect of everybody's life, but you actually have a medium to sort of round this all up in, haven't you? You can put it into song and into a piece. Not many people do. They can talk about it.
No, I just thought, well, let's make something pretty out of it,
Yeah, like I said, you've touched on this before with Days of Our Lives, and you could essentially say the Made in Heaven album is...
Oh, the Made in Heaven album is a very emotional album in general. Obviously, the atmosphere was made under the subject matter. Some of the subject matter is pretty close to the bone. Things like mother love. It's really quite close to the bone. It's quite almost harrowing. I used that word before, but yeah. So yeah, I think you mustn't be afraid of talking about serious things, and yeah.
The film that is attached to Journey's End, or it's not attached, it's one piece.
Mm-hmm.
There were three key markers I found in it. One, Cornwall,
Yeah.
where you're from, your roots.
Yeah.
Your job is in the crowd and the guitars that turn up in it.
Yes.
And your family, your wife.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to talk about maybe those three parts.
Well,
Cornwall is...
Well, Cornwall really, for several reasons, because one, I grew up there, and then I also know some great locations there. So obviously that made it a easier in a way and a pleasure, and we people were very helpful down there. We used my house actually as some of the locations and around there. So it was rather pleasant. It was half holiday, half sort of work.
So you still have a base down there, don't you?
Yeah, I do, absolutely, yeah.
And in the latter part of the piece, you see crowds and guitars, another sort of key marker of a part of your life.
Yeah, it's kind of you're just thinking about looking back on bits of your life. Yeah, just sort of the crowds, and then there are a few Chinese mountains. I always had Chinese mountains in my head, writing the song. So yes, Cornwall worked well.
And then obviously Serena appears.
Yes. Serena, my wife, is one half of the dance, this sort of dreamlike dance in the cathedral.
So what was Serena's involvement in the whole? So you provided the music.
Yeah, Serena is a film producer. She's produced films. So she has a definite ability there. For that, she's very organised, and so it was her suggestion to make the film, and her eagerness to do it, her zeal over the whole project that brought it all together with Stuart Brennan, her friend, the director, a very good actor and writer and director. So they made it happen around me, I guess. So thank you.
But no, you look great in it. You're this kind of character strolling through everything that's going on.
I didn't really want my face in it. It's barely in it. actually, which
Well, your trademarks are there, aren't they?
yeah, kind
and
of
your sunglasses,
yeah,
I guess.
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
But we were discussing just beforehand, obviously with the time being of the essence, maybe for our golden generation of musicians or entertainers, that the Queen and Adam Lambert tour
Yeah.
is selling fantastically well in
Yeah,
the States.
what a thrill. You know, we it's great that there's a demand, and while the demand is there, as long as we're fit, which we luckily are, Brian and I, we'll continue to do it because that's what we do and that's what we love doing. We thought it was all over, as I said before, when Freddie died, and events conspired to make it not all over, and for that I give thanks.
But there's a couple of angles I sort of see in that Queen and Adam Lambert has now existed essentially for over 5 years now. So I'm not going to say novelty, that's a bit disrespectful, but people now see that unit. That's the unit, and that's the story, and that's who's playing.
Absolutely, it works so well with Adam. He's not only very pleasant and funny, he's hilarious to work with. He's just got this gift of a voice that works perfectly with our material. And he's a great professional showman. And so there are many parallels with Freddie. They're not the same. They're very different. But having said that, we've got, as a unit, we've got better. We've improved so much. We even surprise ourselves sometimes. And I think it's a great show, and I can't wait to bring it out this time with a very new and very different look. It's going to look nothing like the shows before, which keeps our interest peaked.
I was going to touch on that later on because I got a little sort of bit of information from Jim told us about this in our meeting. But the other side of it, sort of rounding the sort of Journey's End start to it, is that do you think, obviously it's a great show, there's you, Adam, there's this amazing catalogue being played, but also some people might be thinking, is this one of the last chances to see the band in action? When people are purchasing their tickets, those losses that we had may well play on some people's minds,
Well, absolutely. We're not going to be doing this forever, as I keep going on, we are getting on. And we won't be doing it when we're infirm. So, it could quite well be the last time you're going to see Queen. But I'm not going to try and sell it like that.
Sure, absolutely not. Because no one ever says it's only Kiss that do that, isn't it?
Oh, no, I don't know. Many others have done that. Yeah, many. Last tour, their final tour. The last of the final tour series.
Yeah. Still sticking with the solo material, which actually now, this year, 2017, will be 40 years since you released your first solo material, which is I Want to Testify in 1977. So it's nice that we can probably talk about you as a solo artist, as it were, or someone doing something outside of Queen.
Yeah.
For example, the soundtrack work you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few soundtracks, and it really is quite fun, actually. You're just enabled to step outside yourself and outside the band and the brand, etc., and just do music. Yes, I really enjoyed just done a thing called A Christmas Carol, which is a modern remake of the Dickens tale, and an up-to-date remake. I've done a few things, and it is a very nice sort of semi-anonymous way of making music. It's always very difficult being in a big band to do anything, with the word solo on it. It just makes it very hard. Radio stations don't really want to know about it, and so you just got to keep believing that you're making music that you like, that and you hope some other people like. But the odds against it, taking over the airwaves or just selling in millions are enormous. So I've never really expected too much.
What's the difference in composing soundtrack work to, say, straightforward songs, as it were?
I think songs are harder. All you need for the soundtracks, you just need an atmosphere. You need to create an atmosphere, and not a lot more. Song has to make sense in so many words. It's got to be simple but not stupid. The melody. It's got to be. It's got to work on different levels. It's got to be musical. Yeah, that's a good question.
From this Christmas Carol soundtrack work, there's going to be a track pulled from it, isn't there? Christmas in Love.
Yeah, I mean, it really started as an instrumental piece. It was just a very Christmassy part of the soundtrack, and it was suggested by the director that they get somebody to sing over it. And I said, well, if they want to come up with a lyric and sing it, and it was a very good singer, Canadian guy, let's hear it. So I heard it. I was, he's very good. So really, it's gone from there. So I just did the composition and the instruments, and he did all the vocals and the lyric.
Fantastic. So we've got Journey's End, which is at the start of the year. We've got Christmas in Love at the end of the year. We're talking about a remix of Two Sharp Pencils, your old track. So it's quite a busy kind of year outside of Queen.
No, but I had nothing to do with that. So that was a late night joke between myself and David Richards, our co-producer engineer. Late one night in Montreux. And it was, the whole track was a joke, actually. And it originally had non-rhyming limericks in it, which I think they've taken out. And it's been remixed by modern people and as a dance track, yeah.
So is it, in regards to your work outside of Queen, is this how we're going to see any further material, the occasional track here, the soundtrack? So you're not going to sit and make another album?
No, I don't think I am.
No.
It's like a bit of a hiding to nothing, really. And it's a lot of labour. And I just think I'll follow the ideas if and when they come.
Sure.
And I'll kind of do it for my own pleasure.
Do you stockpile ideas, or is there suddenly things like, no, I'll leave that for maybe Brian to listen to, or that's definitely for me, or that's definitely, or is it just
kind of? But it really, the musical ideas in my head usually, and lyrics. I might just write half a lyric or an idea for a lyric. I'll write it down in my back of my diaries, and I might go through the diary at some point. And there'll be some ideas in there. Yeah.
Mm. I mean, you did cause a bit of a stir when you did the on-air interview with Planet Rock, when you were talking about, possibly trying to record again under a Queenish banner. A lot of people picked up on that.
Well, yeah, as when we were doing the interviews for the launch of the tour, actually in America recently, I think almost every interviewer kept asking about that, and the three of us were there. So Brian, myself, and Adam. And it might have planted a seed, actually. I don't know. We don't have I think we need a killer song, and which showcases, obviously, Brian, myself, but his absolutely stupendous voice. And that's all we need, really.
Well, I watched many of the interviews, and I'll be honest, I was like, we haven't really thought about it. I was like,
it's true.
Really?
It's absolutely true.
I was just trying to dig a bit deeper.
We've never talked about it. We talk about all sorts of things, but we never really talked about that. And I think we did the album with Paul Rodgers, and I really don't feel that album got much of a shake. The record company was in a very poor way at the time, so they didn't help. In fact, they were useless. After being great for so many years, we've done worse albums than that. And I thought it was a decent piece of work. So I guess there's probably a built-in reluctance for Brian and myself to do more stuff under the brand Queen. Although, really, people would say we're stupid to have a singer like Adam and not record something. I just think we'll wait for that killer song.
I think there was a great reaction to when you rearranged his Ghost Town for the South American tour. That was a lovely surprise. It really was. And it started getting some great reception towards the end of those shows.
Yeah, I mean, I felt some of the audiences didn't know the song, but certainly in some places it went great. Actually, it was quite nice. It was like yeah, it was like a sort of almost metal.
It was a disco metal kind of.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was quite fun.
I mean, just rounding up on a few. I've got you here, so I'm going to have to take advantage of it. Legacy-wise with Queen, there's nothing else you need to do anyway past 1991, but you're adding to it all the time, aren't you, with what you're doing? And obviously you have the film as well. Slowly it sounds like it's getting there.
Yeah, well, yeah, the film. I mean, we're not actually doing anything. We're just sort of standing on the sidelines watching people manoeuvre towards the end result, which is actually to make that film. And the main character in the film is indisputably Freddie. Always was, always has been. It looks like the film is definitely going to be made now. They have a fantastic leading man who is, I think, perfect. And basically, Brian and I are just going to be there to ensure the music comes over to its optimum.
And obviously we have the extravaganza. They're never letting us down, are they? Headlining Hammersmith last year.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Very proud of those guys. Amazing. They shock me every time I see them. How good they are at playing our music, you know. And yes, all power to Mark Martell and the boys.
Nice guys, aren't they? All of them.
Yeah.
I hate always to bring back sort of anniversaries and stuff, but again, it's 40 years since News of the World. Now, to me, that just says America to me. That sort of period for you, that when you got in there and you finally sort of.
Yeah, I mean, we'd had quite a few hits in the States before that, but that was the one, I guess, in America. It really did break us out into a new thing. We had We Will Rock You and We're the Champions on it, which obviously became very key, big tracks. Eventually became sports anthems. So, yeah, and the I loved the Family Guy episode featuring the robot on the front.
Absolutely.
Which, my dear old robot.
So
it came from Astounding Stories. Yeah.
So when you were over in the States in 2014, you kind of rearranged the set list. You know, your set list was kind of around the stuff we were pushing at the time. You know, there was you revisited some of the 70s stuff. The early 70s stuff, I'll say.
Yes.
Is there an idea to maybe push some of this News of the World?
It's going to have very much quite a large flavour of News of the World.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So, and it will be quite. I mean, obviously, staples will be in there, but it's going to have quite a different feel and atmosphere, I think, and content. We're doing quite a few different songs. Yeah.
I mean,
songs we haven't played for many years.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, visually, I hear it's going to be quite something as well.
Visually, it's like nothing else we've ever done. Yeah.
I mean, I know Neil, the bass player, is always trying to shoehorn things into the set, isn't he? But I mean, you know, if we're talking News of the World with, you know, Fight from the Inside, I mean, would you ever? I mean, you play guitar on that though, don't you?
I did, yeah. I can't somehow see that one going in. You know, that song is so entirely me. It's almost never felt like a Queen song, but yeah.
Oh, you know, in a dream sequence, you know, if Rufus is there, he could be on drums. You can play Brian on guitar. That's never been seen before in a Queen show, would it? You know.
But I sadly, Rufus won't be joining us.
Oh, really?
No,
okay.
Because he's going to be very busy with The Darkness, and all power to them, you know.
I was going to ask how's he getting on. It sounds like he's.
he's getting on great. I mean, he loves being one of the Darkness. They're a proper group. You know, they're totally collaborative, writing and recording and playing. So he's not like a hired gun, which so many bands, there's usually one or two writers, and the other guys are sort of slightly, what should we say, B players. But they really are a collaborative band, a proper band.
He seems like a good fit. I spoke to him I spoke to him in South America, and he was saying, "No, I'm just about to sign."
Yeah,
sign
no,
the
they're
deal,
absolutely.
and I'm part of the band.
Yeah,
right,
no, they really are. They get on great, and they're very funny, and they're a brilliant band. It's perfect for him. Mm.
So we've got the North American tour, and without blowing anything, obviously there's probably demand elsewhere in the world to see the band again, isn't there?
Yes, I gather there is,
Oh,
which is very, very gratifying, I have to say. Yeah.
So just rounding up, then I think this is our journey's end. I think with the chat we're having.
Yeah.
But we'll have this out as soon as we can, and we'll see what people make of the piece.
Yeah.
And it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Roger.
Thanks.
We'll catch up again soon.
Okay. Yeah. As long as our journey hasn't ended.
Nice. That's a nice thought to end with, isn't it?